On behalf of Jet, Jesse, and Peter and their entire family, I want to welcome you to this celebration of life for Bob Mermell. We're going to begin with Mama Blue.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed days and dark sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Ooh, the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're just saying, I love you. I see babies cry, I'll watch them grow. They'll know much more than we'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Take my mask off. Okay, good. Remember Me by Margaret Mead. To the living I am gone. To the sorrowful I will never return. To the angry I was cheated. But to the happy I am at peace. And to the faithful I have never left. I cannot be seen, but I can be heard. So as you stand upon a shore gazing at a beautiful sea, remember me. As you look in awe at a mighty forest and its grand majesty, remember me. As you look upon a flower and admire its simplicity, remember me. Remember me in your heart, your thoughts, your memories of the times we loved, the times we cried, the times we fought, the times we laughed. For if you always think of me, I will never be gone.
Goodbyes hurt, and they make you think. They make you realize what you had, and what you've lost, and what you have taken for granted. I have many memories of my Uncle Bob, and it's hard to select, but here's a few. My Uncle Bob, he was the American husband in the family, the man who loved my aunt so much that he flew over to the Netherlands, and he came to conquer her heart and the hearts of our southern Dutch family. For husband that stood next to my Aunt Jet and loved her with all his heart. For husband that saved her life and nurtured her back to health after a debilitating brain hemorrhage struck you in your early 20s. The family was ever grateful that Uncle Bob was on your side. My Uncle Bob, he was the voice. the most beautiful, sexy, confident, warm voice in the universe. The voice that could motivate, inspire, comfort you like no other. My Uncle Bob was a successful serial entrepreneur, never ceasing to amaze the Dutch relatives with his unconventional plans. He would sit around in Valkenswaard in Holland and tell us about his projects. Radio stations, dialysis centers, and of course the general store in Pennsylvania. And whilst the Dutch family sat around gossiping about these wild adventures, my Uncle Bob turned each and every project into gold. We were so proud. My Uncle Bob was a father, a great father to Pete and to Jessie. He was dedicated, and from the time I was this big, I had to hear, Jessie's going to be the first female president of the United States. And our Pete, he's going to be a major league ball player. He stood by them, encouraged them, and he encouraged them to not take the standard path. It was important that they follow their passions, they follow their hearts, and they persevere what their dreams were made of. Last but not least, Uncle Bob was my uncle. He was my home away from home. He was there for me when I was in Canada studying and attending college. He was the uncle who captured every life moment and milestone with a camera and a video. We went through the pictures and some of the things yesterday. Yeah, my uncle, the voice of reason. He always greeted me with his wide smile, a big hug. He looked me in the eyes and he said, "Hey, Sass, how are you?" Uncle Bob, I will never forget you. You're forever in my heart. I love you. May you rest in peace.
Why am I going after Saskia? When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber in safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe, briefly. Our eyes, briefly, see with hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent on their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of cold, dark caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better because they existed.
The night after I was asked to do Bob's eulogy, I remembered a quote I had in my office when I was a pastor in Tampa. What you do is what you believe. All else is religious talk. And I said to myself, oh, that is so Bob Mermell. Bob's father was Jewish. His mother was the daughter of a Methodist minister. She converted to Judaism after they got married, and Bob was raised Jewish. Jet, Bob's wife, is from the southern part of Holland, which is Catholic. Jet said, we always believed in one big human family, one big humanity. There's good and there's bad in all religions. It didn't matter what religion we were. We always believed that it's not about talking, it's about doing. And that made me remember that quote, what you do is what you believe. In preparation for this eulogy, I interviewed Bob's colleagues, I interviewed family members, and I asked them, what did you see Bob do that revealed something that he believed? Here's a short story. It's called She Was All Smiles. Bob's father, Dr. Lester Mermell, was an ophthalmologist. During World War II, he was in a MASH unit in North Africa. He met Rhoda, who would become Bob's mother, in the same MASH unit. Now, Rhoda moved with her unit all across Europe, and at the end, the unit was set up at concentration camps as they were liberated. Rhoda never talked war stories, but she always volunteered in the hospital, Meals on Wheels, and it was with Meals on Wheels when Rhoda visited Madeline Mayhook. Now, Madeline's house was a mess. There were dirty clothes scattered on the floor, old food, dirty dishes, and bugs. Bob's mother, Rhoda, told Bob's wife, Jet, who was a nurse at the hospital, this woman needs help. Jet visited Madeline and admitted her to the hospital. Madeline had advanced cataracts. Bob's father operated. Madeline could see clearly. Then they got her into a retirement community, 3 meals a day. Jet said she was all smiles. The Mermells did what came naturally. They helped Madeline. Growing up, Bob watched his mom and dad. From their example, Bob wanted to contribute with whatever problems needed solving, and Bob wanted to support the common good in communities. Now, think back about the first time you met Bob Mermell. What did you notice? Anybody? His smile. What else did you notice about Bob? His voice. That's right. Okay. It's the radio voice. Well, Bob and Jet owned a string of radio stations, as we were talking about, in Northeast Pennsylvania. Think small towns, farms, and rolling hills. Today we'll remember Bob with several stories, kind of like good old-time radio. And here's one, and it's called Radio Man. I'm sure the people in Homesdale can still hear Bob's voice in their ears. He used those radio stations for the common good, giving lots of airtime to nonprofits. He was the host for many charitable events, and he did live broadcasts from the waters of Lake Wallenpaupack and from the Wayne County Fair. And true story, he was broadcasting live while riding on an elephant's back down Main Street to announce the arrival of a traveling circus. Now, Bob did it all. Later, as part of Compassionate St. Augustine, Bob wanted to teach radio broadcasting to the youth at the Youth Academy, a juvenile detention center. It didn't work out because of health and other reasons, but rest assured, otherwise it would have happened. He wanted to give those young men an experience that may have opened up a career path. Karen Goldman said, "He was a good man." Now here's a good story, and the title on this one is, I Just Noticed. Peter, Bob's son, told me that when he was growing up, a 5-minute trip to CVS with his dad would turn into an hour. Bob would meet people he knew and start talking. But these were not hollow conversations. They were not to promote his dad's business. Bob would ask, "How's your family? How can we help?" He cared about everybody. He cared about what was going on. Peter said, "My dad always waved to everyone. He'd say, 'You never know what's happening in that person's life. Maybe they could use a wave hello today.' Now," said Peter, "I wave to everybody, or I wave to people." Family came first. Dad was always there to play catch. He was never too busy. Dad never missed a Little League game when I was playing. "Now," said Peter, "I do this with my son, Liam. I don't say I'm too busy because it's not what my father would say." Then Peter said, "A lot of the lessons that I learned, he wasn't trying to teach me, he was doing them. I just noticed." I like this next story. It's called "We Found a House." After 4 years, Bob and Jet were visiting St. Augustine about 4 years ago, and they came to the Lincolnville Museum. Now, for Gail Phillips, co-founder of the museum, Bob and Jet stood out because of their positive interest in the museum and also in their interest in African American history in St. Augustine. Several months later, Gail thought she recognized them walking down the street. "We found a house!" they exclaimed. Very quickly, Gail invited Bob to be on the board. She's got a good eye for that. He was all in. If there was nothing Bob wouldn't do physically, emotionally, intellectually. Gail said she sensed that Bob had had experiences before he came to St. Augustine that conditioned his heart to want to be involved in sharing African American history. Gail went on. Bob felt he could make a difference at the museum. He shared his heart with us. Perhaps he knew that we at the Lincolnville Museum wanted to give him a way to use his life experience in his remaining years. This next story tags to that. It's called Living Legends. Bob asked to work at the museum's front desk, but not just any old time. He wanted to be there on third Saturdays of the month, right, Dee? That's when Dr. Dee Israel volunteered, and Bob wanted to get to know her. So how did that work out? Well, they bonded. Dee said Bob looked for the good in people. He lived the question, what is there that we can possibly use to better understand people? Sometimes we talked about politics, and Dee went, ugh. Must have been during the Trump years, right? And he'd say, now, Dee, there just has to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Well, the tunnel is closed now. And Bob said, well, Dee, we'll see. And Dee reflected, I learned to be more understanding with him. I learned to be more understanding. Bob and Dee served on a committee at the museum to bring up names of possible living legends, people still alive who contributed to civil rights and to the community. Bob suggested a name. Dee said that I said, now, we don't need that person. And Bob said, well, I'll go do the interview. Bob had a way of eking out the positive. He brought back the results, describing the candidate, and Dee said, "Wow, I never knew about that." Dee reflected, "Bob helped us better understand people. Bob exemplified what Christ was teaching. It wasn't about being religious, it was a part of Bob." Ted Voorhees said, "They came to St. Augustine 4 years ago, and it is amazing how many people came to know Bob and Jet." Now, folks, this is a eulogy, and people mostly say nice things at a eulogy, but maybe it's time for a reality check. And the next story is titled, "Are We Talking Sainthood Here?" Someone said that Bob has a strong J on the Myers-Briggs scale. Now, J's prefer more structured and more decided lifestyles. I heard from good sources that Bob was not perfect. He could be rigid. He could be a pain at times. When the kids were growing up, Bob would put up Post-it notes everywhere about obvious things, and most of them were to remind himself, but I heard that Bob put up plenty of Post-its to remind the rest of us. Going camping together, outdoors, rest, fresh air, and scheduling. Relaxation and free time will be between 10:28 and 10:51. I also heard that none of those flaws were overwhelming. He could temper his desire for structure with kindness. He knew how to agree to disagree. Our last story happened very recently, and it's called, "How Can I Move the Needle?" Bob believed when there is a problem, big or small, we all have a role in making it better. Jessie, Bob's daughter, said that if there was a candy wrapper on the sidewalk, Dad was on it. With social injustice, he knew that required a more involved response. She said that Dad was always figuring out how to take whatever resource he had or expertise and then put it in service of an organization or a people. Bob died of cancer that originated 17 years earlier as prostate cancer. A few weeks before he died, he learned about a campaign to put a prostate cancer drug into generic production. Bob used his experience with prostate cancer to write an amazing letter to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And here are just a few excerpts. "Dear Secretary Becerra, I was briefly placed on Xtandi. Filling one prescription for the drug cost $625.70. Out of pocket. I was horrified. As horrified as I was by the cost, I was even more upset when I learned about the disparities between what American patients pay for this drug and what patients in countries like Japan, Canada, and France pay. Please allow American prostate cancer patients the same right to access affordable care as patients around the world. Please allow us to focus on our health and our families rather than dollars and cents. Please put people over profits. I am available for any questions." Bob signed this letter on February 26th while he was in hospice care. He left this life 3 days later. Copies of his letter are in the back. It's really something. Bob used his own fight with cancer to maybe move the needle to create change for other people. That's how I knew Bob Mermell. He was passionate for social justice and human rights. His passion lives on in people who noticed, like his children and many others, and many of us here in St. Augustine, who noticed him and how he lived out his beliefs. And it lives on in how we continue to incorporate that good trouble energy into our lives. A week before Bob died, Pam and I and Jet and Jesse were with Bob, and I read Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken. Here's the last stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. After I read the poem, we talked about how Bob met a lovely exchange student from Holland, how he chose a road less traveled to hopefully be with Jet. And then he visited her and her family in Holland, how this led to fluency in Dutch and ease in Dutch culture, and to have family, as we have seen, on both sides of the Atlantic. Irvin Bullock said, Bob was exuberant about the life he got to have. No regrets. He had a wonderful, rich, full life. He was grateful. His wife and his kids were huge in it. He was amazed he got to do so many wonderful things. What Bob did in his life revealed what he believed. That raises a question for me, and perhaps for you. If what I do really is what I believe, what beliefs do my actions reveal? Is this what I want my life to be about? Is there something from Bob's life that I want to incorporate into my own? And that would be the richest gift back to him imaginable.
I'm going to do a song written by a New England folk singer, Bill Staines. It's a love song about a couple who fell in love many years ago at the Roseville Fair. I was near because I can make it out, except for a few adaptable details. It's a song about Bob and Jet, the Roseville Fair.
Golly, Bob, howdy. Anybody remember that from Bob? What's that? Oh, yeah, maybe I'll do that. Thank you. Thank you. I thought I'd start with that. That's Bob and my relationship. We grew up together since he came to Honesdale with the radio station, and it seems like whenever we got together, it was word salad all the time. Word salad. We always try to outdo each other. But that was one of my favorite comments from Bob. More enthusiastic Wayne County, Pennsylvania dairy country expressions, as you can imagine. It was one of his more sophisticated intellectual greetings when we got together. It was an adjective, an adverb, it's a verb. It was a noun. It was almost everything. So, I'm Brett Decker. Sue and I have been good friends with Bob and Jet for over 40 years, I thought. Jet said 45 when we talked earlier. Quite a while, starting out in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. They were even godparents to our kids, Seth and Leah. Seth and Bryn. Honesdale play and schoolmates early for several years with Peter and Jesse. To me, Bob was, I have like 3 or 4 just things that you all should know about Bob. He was actually a gold medalist in the linguistics gymnastics category. And people who know him obviously know what I'm talking about. He was always coming up with clever quips, sayings, responses to what others said to add to it or to liven things up a little bit. I don't think his mind ever took a break, right? And you know what I mean. Secondly, he was an unapologetic prankster. Has anybody had a prank pulled on? Thank you. Jesse's shaking her head. Prankster, way back, let's see, early in the new radio station days in Honesdale when Bob was still commuting from Middletown over at 4 or 5:30 in the morning to get on the air before they moved over to Honesdale. I can't remember the reason, but I happened to stop by very early in the morning. I don't know if it was to take coffee or to get coffee or whatever it was. Stop by really early. It was right after Farmer Frank, the Farmer Frank segment. Remember, this is their rural dairy farm area. Farmer Frank segment on the hotly contested debate at that time about cow manure versus commercial fertilizer, and the effects it's going to have on the county livestock and corn crop. So that was pretty exciting. So but every morning, Bob was in the glass. I know you can imagine a little radio station. He was in the glass broadcasting room, manning the microphone, getting ready for the morning national news segment following the Farmer Franks. When he saw me come in, and immediately he looked out of the booth, and I gave him a little wave, and immediately I heard over the loudspeaker that was also being broadcast. You could hear it out in the main area. I could hear him over the broadcast speaker saying, "Coming up next, we have a special guest news reporter, Brett Decker, who will give us the news in the next 60 seconds. And I'm thinking, I'm not. And I'm there like, no, I'm not going to do that. He went to some commercial. He slammed a commercial into the slot. That's how they did it back then. And he came out, and I said, "Bob, I'm not doing that. What are you doing to me?" He said, "I've already promoted you. You're in. Follow me." So I said, "All right, you got to go along with this. What's their prank?" So I went in, and he handed me a bunch of these torn off slips of recycled brown paper that comes off the teletype. This is going way back, probably before computers. Anyway, the teletype, and he said, "Go." And all I did was, I started reading, and it turned out all right. But that was pranked, really a good one. Even after we moved away from Honesdale, Sue and I, our visits together with Jet and Bob continued in our returns every year to Elk Lake, a little place we have up there just outside of Honesdale. Summer traditions always included several visits from Bob and Jet back and forth. We'd go to their house. They'd come to the lake. A lot of laughter, friendship, good times, right, Jet? Yeah, always, most of the time, right? At the lake. Important piece you should know. At the lake, always included Sue's Elk Lake slushies. It's the key word, slushies. Strawberry slushies, or 2, especially for Bob. His favorite. One afternoon after a lake visit, and multiple slushies, Bob drove home and decided to mow the lawn with his big tractor. They had a lot of land up there. Being slushified, as I like to call it, he missed a step and fell off trying to get on and got all a little bit banged up. So mowing would have to wait another day. He loves to tell that story, right, Jet? During their winter breaks, Bob and Jet would stop by on their way to and from their visits to Heather and Peter, or a Florida friend on the way back. So we'd always get a chance to also, during the winter, get our visit with a little wine and pizza. I always enjoyed that. And last, really, two things more. Words. Bob was big on words. Obviously, he had to be big on words. He was quite a talker, great voice, right? Some might think words that describe Bob are the following. Some might think this: quiet, humble, reserved, shy, withdrawn, antisocial, and spotlight avoidance. So I'm not sure, but he was anything but that. We all know that. He's just the opposite. Bob was smart, kind, friendly, hardworking, loyal, welcoming, humorous, and had a definite opinion on things. He was comfortable. He was comfortable in the spotlight or being the spotlight. I'm not sure if anybody's aware of that. Yeah, I think Jesse gives me the nod, right? From Bob's wild and crazy, bold plaid suits that he wore to events, they were nice, really nice, to my favorite event costume, the Holstein cow suit. Up there in the dairy farm area, he had the whole gear on, and on the belly, about waist high, was this round patch with the protruding udders. Pretty classy look as he went around. He was always a crowd pleaser, and everybody expected it. No, he was. That pleased me. I laughed every time. He was always a life of party, Bob Mermell. Bob Mermell, you were a good guy, a good man, a good dad, a devoted husband, a good friend, and one of a kind in more ways than one. You'll be missed and not soon forgotten. Rest in peace.
Consolation by Robert Louis Stevenson. Though he that ever kind and true kept stoutly step by step with you, your whole long, gusty lifetime through, be gone a while before, be now a moment gone before, yet doubt not, soon the seasons shall restore your friend to you. He has but turned the corner still, he pushes on with right goodwill. Through mire and marsh, by hew and hill, that self-same arduous way, that self-same upland hopeful way, that you and he through many a doubtful day attempted still. He is not dead, this friend, not dead, but in the path we mortals tread, got some few trifling steps ahead, and nearer to the end, so that you two, once past the bend, shall meet again, as face to face this friend you fancy dead. Push gaily on, strong heart, the while you travel forward mile by mile, he loiters with a backward smile, till you overtake, and strains his eyes to search his wake, or whistling as he sees you through the break, waits on a stile.
The family wanted to leave open an opportunity if there was anyone who wanted to make some brief comments about Bob. So if you feel moved, you're certainly welcome to come and make some comments. You? Come.
I just want to say we've come to St. Augustine only a couple of years ago, and there is a couple back there that came from Honesdale that we met here. They'd moved here, that we've been friends with since, but all of you are new friends. And we feel so warm. It's been so warm. It's been so diverse. It's been so welcoming. And Bob got very sick about 17 years ago, and just lately, in the last couple of years, he's declined, and he had to resign from the Board of Education, for the board of the Lincolnville Museum, much to his chagrin. He hated it, and slowly he lost his energy, and we saw him all decline, really, and we just had our 50th wedding anniversary this summer, and I just feel, I feel very grateful. I mean, we had 50 wonderful years. We have 52 beautiful kids, a sister and nephew, Sas and Pratt. Life stinks sometimes, but there's also so much beauty in the whole thing. I mean, look at Maxine sitting there. I have to tell you, we met Maxine, who lives in Lincolnville. Bob was walking on the street, and he had wild socks on. No, yeah, he had wild socks on. I mean, with the signs, and Maxine made a comment about it, and she lived right around the corner from us, and we didn't know her from Eve, I guess. And a couple of days later, she comes with a pair of socks for Bob. You know, wild socks. And so I brought her some oatmeal cookies, and the week later she came with another wild pair of socks, and a week later with a whole bag full of wild socks. And this community has just been so welcoming. It's just been wonderful. We feel at home here. Warren and Pam have been wonderful. Delara has been so wonderful. And I see Fred Chalmers there, who is from Honesdale. And you've just all been wonderful. I can't say how grateful I am for you all being here. And we'll just keep going on. But we're grateful for what we've had. We've had 50 great years. So thank you all. Thank you.
This is called a meditation before Kaddish. Kaddish are those Jewish prayers for those of blessed memory. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and you cannot give me away. At least let me live in your eyes and not your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
Thank you. I got one, Father. Thanks. Yeah. I had never heard this song before. And it's such a beautiful song, Jed. She requested I sing this song by Nina Simone, and I'm an avid, I love Nina Simone. I've gotten a lot of albums through the years, but I never heard this one. And it would be you to introduce me to such a beautiful song, so thank you. And this is so him. You guys were wonderful to me, and for the past 4 years, I mean, we've had our fun times as well. And Bob is, wow. Even the last time we talked on Zoom, he was just happiness, love, like straight, boisterous love. And I'm grateful to know him and call him friend, and call you friend as well. He was so good to me. How can I get along now? So close he stood to me. I like this one. Okay, I'll sing it up here. Okay. Everything is all messed up and wrong now. My baby would have brought me the sun, 'cause making me smile, that was his fun. When I was mean to him, he didn't say, go away now. You see, I was queen to him. Who's gonna make me gay now? It's only natural that I am blue. 'Cause my baby was too good to be true. I said he was too good to me. How can I ever get along now? So close he stood to me. Everything's all messed up and wrong now. He would have brought me the sun and the moon. 'Cause anytime I left him, it was too soon. When I was mean to him, he didn't say, go away now. I was his queen to him. Who's gonna make me gay now? It's only natural that I am blue. He was too good to be true.
The family now invites you to a reception on our commons next door. I will lead the family out and you can greet the family at the reception. Go in peace.